Okay, morning. Today's session we're going to be learning about hallel and the seder. And could you split up your seder? And you want to start one place, finish in another place? And we're going to learn also about benching a little bit. Learn about a few topics today. We're going to try to cover everything. Mishna Berura. Well, let's start with the Ramah. That's where we left off yesterday. In Siman Taf Ayin Tes. The Ramah says, the Shulchan Aruch says rather, mitzvah L'chazor achar zimun. There's a mitzvah to go after a zimun. The zimun, when we typically heard this terminology, we think by benching. That you try to get three males above the age of 13, so that you could say, etc. Doesn't mean that over here. This is talking about that you have three people to say hal. We'll see if they actually need to be males. It's not so simple. Maybe females could be used over here, which is unusual in halacha for these types of things. The Ramah says, "Va'gadol shebehem oimer hoidu va'ana." The great one among them, the big one among them, says hodu and ana. Va'achirim oinim achoidav. And the other people, they answer after him. Okay. V'hagadol yachol itin lakotan rishos, and the older one could give the younger one permission. V'yachol esarif lazimun le'inyan halil. Av shelo yachol yamam. You could combine with them for this zimun regarding halal, even though you didn't eat with them. Now this is interesting because in every place in halacha, zimun is referring to benching, and over here we're saying that it means halal. And even though you didn't eat with them, because if it's going to be for benching, so then for sure you need to partake in the suda, in the meal with the individuals who you're combining with for the zimun. However, this zimun has to do with halal; it doesn't have a connection to the meal itself, and therefore someone could combine even if he didn't eat with them. The Ramah concludes the simon by saying, "V'nahagu shebal habayis mevarech birchas hamazon belal Pesach." The custom is that the owner of the house should lead the benching on the night of Pesach. This is unusual from a halachic perspective as well, because typically we say that the guest should lead the benching in order that the bracha will come from him, the yiratzon. שלא יבוש בעל הבית לא בעולם הזה ולא בעולם הבא ויציבו כל נחש וכו' נסח ונושאים הקרוב מילה של סנט ידע ולמעשה ידין ותחיל ולבנינו שום דבר היא וכי ואת העולם. That statement over there, whole discussion, if a guest could say that even if he doesn't lead the benching, why not would be the question, but we'll have to learn about that another time. Shneimar, the pasuk says, Toiv ayin hu yavarach. Someone who has a good eye should make the bracha. Who mikrei toivayin? He's the owner of the house is called someone who has a good eye. Sha'amar, because he said in the beginning of the seder, called dichvin yesiv yechol. Anyone who is hungry, let him come and eat. Everyone said it though, correct. And this, of course, we discussed a lot about when we were learning halach manya, and we still have to even learn more about halach manya. But we already had two major sessions on why it's in Aramaic and why we specifically invite poor people on Pesach. Aramaic, we provided 6 answers. Inviting people on Pesach was closer to 15 answers. So reference those for more details on halach manya. The Mishna Berura comes along and he says, Acher zimun. After the zimun, hiskimu achroinim, the high zimun ein le'inyan birchas hamazon. The achroinim agree that when the Ramah said zimun, he's not talking about over here benching. It's not what he's talking about. I'm just going to enlarge this so that we could see it clearer. This zimun is actually not talking about benching over here, like we already said before. That in order to get a zimun for benching, there would be more of an obligation placed upon an individual on the night of the seder than the rest of the year. Which in and of itself is surprising because we do plenty of things on the night of the seder that we're not careful for the rest of the year. For example, washing before davar shiti bul b'mashka by orchatz. I mean, I wash personally, but a lot of people don't. And we learned yesterday's session, shtifa v'hadachin, internal and external washing of the cup of wine. So, but this is an interesting statement because
Wait,
that
wait, that also is something we should do normally?
That's what it's saying. Typically, a lot of times people don't, but even so, even for those who are lenient on the night of the seder, you should. So it's just interesting that the Mishnah Berura is saying that regarding zimun, it's not referring to benching, because if it would be referring to benching, there wouldn't be more of a reason to get a zimun on the night of the seder more than the rest of the year. To which I respond to that there is. But anyways, over here we're talking about halal, zimun for halal. Who heard of such a thing? You have a zeman for halal. Shemitzvah lahader loimer halal b'shleisha. There's a mitzvah to say halal with three people. Kadeshi had echad oimer l'shnayim hodu ve'im yanu pasach acher zeh. In order that someone tells other people hodu Hashem ki tov ki olam chazdo, and then they respond. I have to see the exact response that they give to that. Voisu shikru leziman zel lo yoichav lo yishav lo yisai levarach b'chizmat lo yishma hodu v'yanei yiman yachshul abeso. And this person that they called over to be involved with this zeman, to join them for halal, he shouldn't eat with them, he shouldn't drink with them, he shouldn't assist them. Rather, he should listen to Hodu and answer with them. And even regarding this, they said that there's a mitzvah that's preferable that you say halal with three males. If you have someone else on your table who is obligated, for sure you should combine them into saying halal. You don't need to be so stringent about this, because technically you could use your wife and your own children to join into halal. So, tremendous surprise. We'll see if we're going to hold like this momentarily. And if the children are young, see later on. Dahainu, meaning, Shehu yoimar v'heim yanu. He says it and then they answer. Vuhadin she'ishto yechol lomar hodom. And the same halacha applies that his wife is able to say hodu. Sharigam nashim machuya b'halal zeh kimoshe michav, because also women are obligated in this halal just like they are obligated on the with the 4 cups of wine. Because of Achayik Yaakov the lafi mashin hagen loimer hoidu benigun ni'imas kol. So the Chok Yaakov says that according to that which is the custom to say hodu with a nigun, with a tune and a pleasant voice, yesh lachosh lamai damrinam begemara. You have to worry about that which it says in the Gemara. Zamna nashi va'anyan gavri ke'esh oiris. Oh, but according to what the Chayik Yaakov said, the custom is that you say hodu with the tune. You have to worry about what it says in the Gemara in Sota Mem Chesem Alf, that when women sing and the men answer, that's like fire to an oiris is a fire. It's in other words, it's not good. Fire flax, it's going to be flammable, so you don't want to mess with that.
It's a hard.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now this is a new topic over here. All right, so this is talking about basically there's an idea of having 3 people. It should really specifically be males for halal, and then someone leads it and does the hodus. You also see something very insightful over here, which we learned together many years ago. Fortunately, it wasn't recorded. We went through many years without recording anything, but that was in Hilchos Halal. The main part of halal, in terms of with the congregation, is not after every single paragraph. It's saying the hodus with them. That's really the main point, and the anas are very big also. But the hodus are really major part. That's what we learned when we learned Hilchos Halal. Okay, so the Mishnah Berura
with the halal gadol that you got to answer everything. I forgot the halal gadol is after, like before.
after.
It's after.
Yeah, after.
Big halal.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, that's when you have the hodus and anas. That's the main thing. We started before. It's the only time we split the halal up. But okay, now let's say you and another guy at your seder. But you say, wait a second, we want a zimun for benching, right? So what do you do over here? Well, let's say you're the only male there. So you could actually relocate yourself in the middle of the seder. If you want, you could go to your neighbor to bench over there with your neighbor. But you have to be very careful. Here's how you do it, or here's how you don't do it. Don't eat the afikomen in your house. Because if you're going to go to your neighbor's house, if you want to combine to a zimun, you got to eat something there. You're going to have to eat more matzah. And then it's considered like you had your meal there, so to say. But if you're going to already have your afikomen at your house first, but also afikomen shum davar, it's prohibited to eat after the afikomen anything. So therefore, you can't eat the afikomen first in your house, because then when you go to your neighbor, you can't eat after your afikomen. And if you can't eat at your neighbor, then you can't combine to the zimun. And you can't split your afikomen and eat it in two places. As the previous simon discusses. And the reason is because the afikomen commemorates the Korban Pesach, and the Korban Pesach you get to eat in one location. That's the idea. So therefore, we have limited options of what you could do. Rather, what we should do is you default in terms of you go to your friend and you eat a little bit there. And also, you're going to eat the afikomen over there where you're at your friend's house, where you're going to be joining in for the zimun as well. Also, you want to drink the kos over there. You're going to drink your third cup of wine. V'yishasham agamar haseder. The Mishna Berura over here says you remain there till the end of the seder. We're going to see if there's any way that you could do a little bit of hit and run in terms of you join his zimun, and then could you return back to your seder? Because after all, you just want the zimun, but you want to stay with everyone else at your seder. Oh, and if you want, you could return to your house after benching, and there you could complete hallel and drink your fourth cup. I have two questions on this line of the Mishna Berura, and maybe I'll open the floor to answers because I really don't know. Why does the Mishna Berura say that you should finish hallel back at your house where you don't have the zimun anyways at your house? The whole point of you went to the guy is so that you get the three people, and now you're leaving prematurely. Question number one. Question number two, why doesn't the Mishnah Berurah specify where you drink your third cup? And where would you drink your third cup in this case?
Where you drink your third cup?
Yeah, third cup. Remember, you're going to your neighbor, you're benching.
You're going to bench by him.
Okay, after benching, after if you want to go back to your house after benching, fine. Finish hallel and you could drink your fourth cup when you go back to your house. What about the third
You're
one?
holding the coast during benching, so I don't know if you start slapping the coast.
So where are you drinking your third coast?
I would think right after you bench.
I would also. Okay, so now
you're gonna have to carry a coast from your neighbors to your house.
So now I have a follow-up question on that. That's what I would think also. And by the way, that's what the Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura says on this Mishna Berura. Even though the Mishna Berura doesn't specify it, you have to drink your third cup by your neighbors. So my question is like this: according to Sfardim, which brachas did they make on their coast? The bracha Rishona, only on the first and third we learned together, right? That was in the previous siman on Taf Ayin Dalet. So now, if you're going to move around, are you going to need to make a bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen for Svardim on the fourth cup? And there's a lot of complicated halachas in Shinim.
Well, you're only going to make Borei Pri Hagafen right before you drink it.
Or not major discussion. So there's what to talk about over here in terms of hilchos brachos also. Just food for thought. I'm not
this whole thing
going either.
I mean, I know he's going to say at the end of the day not to do it, but
why not to do it? This works. Halakhically, this works. If it has to be done.
Right, you eat your meal. Yeah. Now what? You go to the person's house.
Afikomen, benching, and third coast.
So your afikomen is going to count as part of the meal with him.
Yeah. Benching third coast. What's the problem?
Third coast, then you go back home.
Yeah. The question is, why aren't you just doing hallel there also?
Right.
Because he has family. Whatever. He has to stay with his family. Okay, but he says nowadays the custom is not to go eat afikomen in another house. In other words, everything that we just said can be done. However, nowadays you don't really see this. And therefore, it is better to make the bracha in your house, aka bench in your house by yourself, than from going in the middle of your meal to someone else to search after a zimun. If you do want to go after and try to fulfill everything in a preferable manner, and you don't have in your house a zimun of three people, complete zimun, you're lahazmin lechachilu sudos eoreach. That's where it comes from. Invited guests in your house. Kedei sheyeh lo zimun shalom lebirchas hamazon v'gam lemiras hodu. In order that you have a full zimun in your house for benching and also for saying hodu.
Wait, what's the reason? What's the
Two reasons. Number one, benching an actual zimun, and number two, so that you have three people saying the hallel.
no? But what's the reason we don't search after it anymore?
Oh, we don't do it? He doesn't say why. He just says,
Don't know.
yeah,
Would it matter if you know where if you know where your neighbors are up to by by hearing them?
yeah.
Would that change? Meaning, if you know that you're not going to be, it's going to be not mopsic, you're not going to make people wait in your house. If the whole, if the whole family can hear where people are up to, then
Right. Same
then
idea.
yeah.
Yeah. Look at the chart, Sion over here in Yud Beis commenting on what we just read. The belav achim avor bekama svorim mishim hazoyer hakadosh. The mitzvah lahazmin oreach oni b'chag. Because without this, the Zohar says, invite someone to join you on Pesach. Uberfat Pesach shomer kol echa kol dichvin yisviachol. Especially on Pesach, where you tell everyone, anyone who's poor, let him come and eat. You should invite someone poor. So I think a lot of parents and in-laws fulfill this by inviting their kids over who they considered poor. I think that's also why they buy them $1.5 million houses. Also, the rest of the year they extend it the rest of the year. That's the custom that everyone keeps doing nowadays in this area. You ask people, did you buy your house or your parents or in-laws got it for you? You'll see, probably 95 out of 100 say they didn't spend nothing on it. But anyways, there's nothing to do with this. Just kidding around. But I mean, it's not a joke, it's true, but I don't know. Anyways, the idea is that the custom is not to do this. Even if you know what you're up to, you're living in Brooklyn. Someone told me once when they first moved to Brooklyn, they opened their window for some fresh air. And then staring them down around a foot and a half away was their neighbor from their window. Said they kept the blinds down. They never opened it again because they're so close to their neighbor. It obviously depends on the location, and everything, but the point is that you could really tell what they're up to in their seder, right? So the question is, would there be a difference if your neighbor is right next to you and you know exactly what they're up to versus if you're in more of a suburban area, right? You're in Back Lawrence, you're in Woodsburg, and the houses, even if you go to your neighbor, right? Because every property is like a half an acre or something, it takes a minute or two to walk to your neighbor, right? And especially if there are more houses away and they're further. So would there be a difference? I don't think there would be a difference in the case. The Mishna Berura seems to not go with this. He doesn't want you doing this at all, but he definitely does want you making a zimun, and he wants to make sure that you have three people at your house. So this is where it comes from. Additionally, it should be pointed out, sometimes by the end of the seder, it gets a little hefker. Everyone's just rushing to end the thing. Some people are already falling asleep. And you see from over here the halachic uh, importance of having not just three people physically there, but mentally and in terms of verbally, that they're all on the same page and they're all in unison together to wait and to come as I guess the word would be cohesive unit, like a choir. If everyone's off tunes, it's not going to work. You have to go on the same tune and to do hallel together, to do the hodus together, to do the anas together. That's an important point, which is kind of off the page, which isn't mentioned, but it obviously is very important to say that. Omer
Yeah. Wait,
hoidu,
on a different, on like a similar but a little different note. Wait, as a woman, should she try to bench at the same time as everyone else?
yes, she should join a Zeman in general every day of the year when she's there. Yes. Mishnah Berura, Omer hoidu v'ana. Hurak mitzvah lechachilo ve'ena liikuva. Okay, so this is a mitzvah, but it wouldn't be ma'akev, it wouldn't hold you back. In other words, bidi evid, post facto, a person would still fulfill his obligation in if this wasn't done with three people properly. But preferably, this should be done. This is preferable. Other people answer, and if there's only two people, then two people say the hodu. See, you see, there's even an idea of saying it just with two people. You could give someone younger permission that he should say the hodus and the anas, and the reason is so that he won't sleep and to educate him with the mitzvahs. You see something that's so interesting from this Mishna Berura that you clearly see that even minors in the time of the Mishna Berura, Ketanim, we're talking about 10 years old, they were still the Chafetz Chaim was trying to push them to get through the seder even by hallel after the whole benching. Nowadays, a lot of times you see with kids, they do the little okay, Kaddish, Orchat, Manashtana. After Manashtana, they're gone. They're running all over the place. The Makos, and then sometimes they'll come back for the Makos. They'll bring out the little projects with all the little cute things flying all over the place. And then what happens? Finished. They're all finished. Guys, don't get into. We already discussed in Shulchan Aruch a little. We have to discuss it more. We didn't discuss Shulchan Aruch, but Shulchan Aruch on the night of the Seder is not a time to sit down with adults and start schmoozing for 2 hours about not Torah-related topics. Push through the Seder, don't drag out the Shulchan Aruch, and move on and get the kids involved. That's what you see from this Mishna Berura. What I just said is not extreme. It's not even Musar, it's halacha. That's what the Mishna Berura is saying. I don't even think I'm saying it over so harsh. That's what he's saying over here.
When does the Rav try to finish his
I don't really lead my Seder yet, so it's whatever. It's not okay. Maybe one year we'll make a Seder together. It'll be very nice after we finish Allah. Who knows? Who knows? Anyways, the idea is it'll be a beautiful Seder, I'm sure. The idea over here is that you give your katan permission. Why? Why do you give permission? Number one, so that he won't sleep. Number two, chinuch. You got to educate the children, right? So chinuch is always, there's a lot to weigh in chinuch. We saw around a month ago why people who just became bar mitzvah shouldn't be chazan. That's when there's a lot of people. They don't know all the halachas. They don't know to go the right pace and everything. And everyone's got to start somewhere. So the idea over here is that with the chinuch, it's a private seder. You start them off. They got to start somewhere. You got to teach them somewhere. In houses, which when the father doesn't teach the sons how to say the tunes properly, a lot of times they'll never know how to daven. But if they hear the tunes in their house, eventually they'll catch on. Your father teaches you, making sure it's not hard how to learn how to daven as chazan for anything. Shachris, Musaf, Shabbos, Yontif, none of it's hard. It's all just a couple of tunes. It just takes a little rehearsal and getting the tunes. Also, people who are in shul all the time, they hear the tunes every single week. How could you not know the tunes by now? But anyways, that's something else. Bezehu davka b'amiras ana. This is specifically when it comes to saying ana, because they're answering after it, that pasuk itself, but not hodu. So you see that the children shouldn't lead hodu, but the ana they could. Again, this goes with what we mentioned around 10 minutes ago, that the most important part of hallel, saying it with the congregation of multiple people, is the hodu, and then second in line would be the ana. That's the main part. If you could only say part of it with the congregation, that's what you do. Even if the host is hosting someone of the house, the balabayas, he should still lead the benching even if he has a guest. It's not a big deal if someone else would lead the benching, but nevertheless, the owner of the house should lead the benching. This is everything over here on the page of this. This Sha'ar Tzion, it's very funny. I just recently saw this quoted over here, that there's a mitzvah to invite a guest for halach manya, because we say kol dichvin yesiv yechol. It's an interesting Sha'ar Tzion, interesting Zohar that you should have a guest regardless over. The Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura just comments a little bit on the Ramah when it comes to saying a hallel on the night of Pesach. The Gadol should say it. You could combine with the Zimun. And someone, even if he didn't eat with you, you could go there like we learned, because saying hallel, ein lahalo shaychus ka'al suda. Hallel doesn't have a connection with the meal, and therefore you could combine someone else to your hallel also, which we discussed before. That would be an explanation why, even though the rest of the year the custom is that the guest leads the zimun, as is discussed in Siman Reish Aleph. Nevertheless, the custom is in the night of the seder. The owner of the house leads it because of what we said. Kol dech v'nyes v'yechol. We say in the beginning of the seder halachmanya. Anyone who's hungry, let him come and eat. He was already hospitable by inviting guests over, so therefore he leads the benching. That in of itself is an interesting idea. Okay. Then the Mishna Berura, the Ozvahadam Mishna Berura just specifies that this zimun is not referring to benching. In other words, even though typically the language, the terminology of zimun is accepted to mean benching, nevertheless, over here it does not mean benching. Right? We're talking about hallel over here. Okay, the Ozvahadam Mishna Berura on the next page says, why could technically women combine to this hallel, this zimun that we have? The answer is simple, because they are equivalent to men halachically, basically on the night of the seder, and they're able to say hallel, but the Chok Yaakov nixes that. The Mishnah Berurah doesn't like that because it's an insightful idea that you got to say hallel with the tune, and this is important. You have to say hallel with the beautiful tune on the Seder night to commemorate the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu bestowed miraculous, he performed miraculous miracles for us during the period that, number one, we were in Egypt, number two, the Exodus itself. So therefore, the women will be singing, and you don't want that because that could cause improper thoughts for men, and therefore could lead to something bad. So forget about that. Mishna Berura then said, if you wanted to go after a zimun, you want to get 3 people for benching, you could go to your neighbor's house to combine over there, but don't eat your afikomen over there. In your house, excuse me. Don't eat your afikomen in your house, because you have to eat something. If you eat your afikomen in your house and you can't eat anything after, as is discussed in the previous Siman Tafayin Ches, that the last flavor in your mouth should be from the afikomen, and you already had your afikomen at your house, you can't eat it there then. Furthermore, you can't split up your afikomen and eat it in 2 places, because the afikomen commemorate the Korban Pesach and it was prohibited to eat it in 2 places, and therefore you can't eat some in your house, some in your neighbor's house. Rather, if you want, you could go after the zimun for benching. So then you should eat the afikomen in your neighbor's house itself, and this is the key part to focus on right over here. Yochel afikomen be'ishchenoi. Eat the afikomen in your neighbor's house, where the zimun's going to be. Begam yishta sham hakois. And you should drink the kos. So if we go back to the Mishnah Berura, I asked a question over here, and it's really a misleading question that I asked. Okay, it says over here, Yoichel afikomen b'makom shemezamin u'avarech sham. Eat afikomen in the place where you're doing the zimun, and make the bracha over there. The bracha on what? The bracha on what?
The kos.
No, that's benching. The gam yishta sham hakos, and also you drink the kos over there. And then v'yisher shama gemara seder. Okay, then you stay there until the end of the seder. So in this part, he clearly says what to do. Stay there the whole seder. But then look at what the Mishnah Berura says. V'im roitze yachzer lebeisel acher birchas hamazon. If you want, you go to your house after benching. V'yigmor hallel v'yishta kos yavi. Finish hallel and drink the 4th cup. So over here, he doesn't specify what you do with the 3rd cup. My question still stands. Only over here, he specifies what you do. So regarding that particular point, those Hadar says in this part of the Mishnah Berura that eat the afikomen over there and drink the 3rd kos, because the 3rd kos is established to say over benching, and it's a shaychus to benching, it's directly connected to it. Remain there until the end of the seder so that you could say hallel with the zimun. You clearly see over here that he's identifying, acknowledging the fact that you should just stay there, remain there, because you already have 3. You have your zimun for benching, and therefore the main zimun is really for the hallel. Stay for that. If you want, you could return to your house after benching and the drinking of the 3rd kos. You see, right over here.
So you drink the 3rd kos back in your
No,
house.
no. After. This is part of the same sentence. If you want, return back to your house. Acher birchas hamazon v'shtia shlishi.
So you drink
I think that's how it means. Yeah. You return to your house after benching and the drinking of your 3rd cup. V'yigmar hallel v'yishta kos yavi. And you finish hallel and you drink your 4th kos in your house. I think the comma is before v'yigmar hallel. I think so. That would make logical sense. And therefore, the Mishna Berura said the custom is not to do this, and therefore it's better to make the bracha in your house by yourself, aka the benching. Kevan shemevarach ba'al Pesach al kos gam b'yechid b'lisi rishon shel yunzim mahal yismach al ishto. And regarding, so that's what's better to do. And regarding hallel, you could even use your wife in this case, or your children. That's better than from going in the middle of your seder to someone else. So you see from over here that it's halachically not preferable to go to someone else's seder in the middle. I would argue.
Wait, how old a child are we? We're saying like over.
We didn't say an age, even if they're children. I would say probably above 6, at least, right? The youngest 6. A lot of times you have now, which are becoming very popular, these Pesach programs, and basically what happens on most of these programs, I mean, unless you're gonna be a higher roller and pay for a private room, but most of the time people are paying enough that they're not gonna pay for that in addition, and they don't have the means to. But a lot of these programs, you have hundreds of people in one room, and the question is, maybe you'll say, "Oh, I'll swap seders in the middle, whatever." I'm right there anyways. The whole thing's paid for anyways. It doesn't matter where I sit. You're not supposed to. It seems like they want you to stay at your seder. Maybe because it's in the same room, then it would be okay. It says labayis achi. You're going to a different house.
Yeah, you would think they would be perfectly fine.
Maybe that could be okay. I think that this would be a nice shaila to put in the Shilas and Tshuva Sefer if someone already didn't do so. I don't know if it's in any Shilas and Tshuva Sefer. This particular question of going to another seder on a Pesach program in the same room, but something to just think about at least for now.
I mean, even there are halachos of roa, right?
There are halachas, but even if you see them, if you didn't eat with them, so then you shouldn't join them. Famously, many Gedolei poskim say that even if you are eating at the same table with someone else, for example, in a cafeteria in a yeshiva, since you're not really eating together, it just happens to be that it's a lunchtime and this is when they serve the food, but you're not really eating together. It's just you just happen to be sitting there, then you wouldn't make a zimun. In many yeshivas throughout the world, they go with that psak, and you have to. The main thing is you have shaykhs to one another. You're really eating together, like the language of the Mishnah. Shloisha sha'achlu ke'echad. 3 people that ate like one. You really ate together. There was a unity over there.
You see over here, you're supposed to be machazer after a zimun, so if you like eat together, if you eat together at the end, you could make it work.
You are supposed to right. However, were you really eating together or not? You were with your family. You shelled out $20,000 so that your extended family could come. You have no interest in spending a millisecond with other people. You just want to enjoy nachas from your children and grandchildren. That is why you decided to spend $20,000, and therefore you don't want them going somewhere else. And the same thing with the other family, right? That's the idea. Now, it's getting popular because these programs are so expensive. I don't even know the price. I'm assuming that's the approximate price. It probably depends which hotel and all the details, the location, etc. But now people are renting out big houses in Virginia and all these places. Yeah, all these places that they're going to.
Virginia?
But that doesn't have to do with this. Now, let's wrap this up because this is the end of the simon over here. We didn't touch the Piskei Teshuvos. I'm not going to have time for that. V'ini lekuva. V'im Omar kol echad b'fnei atzmo hallel kesidro b'lisha Omar echad v'anu achordav yotzu yedei hallel. Right. If everyone did a hallel individually, you still fulfill your obligation. However, it would not be that is not preferable, but you would still fulfill your obligation nevertheless. Okay? B'mein sham kiyim shnayim. If you only have 2 people. Shnayim yoimer hodu, they both say hodu. V'lo yoimer echad b'chaveru hoidu she'anu achordav sheniyachol loimer liyachir hoidu shuloshana. Okay. So basically, this is the story over here. Okay, let's go to this last Mishna Berura over here. He said that if you want, you could give the minor permission to lead the hallel. He says the hallel gadol in order to get them careful so that they won't sleep and then you're going to properly fulfill the mitzvah v'yigaret labincha b'yoymahu. In other words, even for me, I'll tell you this year we're going to have a gathering. It's going to be me, my sisters, their families. One of my sisters has a few kids. We have 4 kids. It's going to be me, my uncle, and we're going to have a crew. Forget about everyone else. Everyone else there does not matter. What matters is your children. I don't have a responsibility to teach Torah I mean, of course, they're going to ask me a few ideas throughout the Seder, but I don't have a responsibility to teach my mother Torah, to teach my sisters Torah. I don't have to teach their husbands. Now, they'll listen, and I'm sure they'll benefit. Like, I remember one of my brothers-in-law, when we had a Seder, for the first time when he joined our family, he said, "Wow, that was an amazing Seder. Thank you so much for everything that you said. I never experienced anything like that. I really got a great understanding of Haggadah and everything." That's what he told me. But that has nothing to do with my obligation. My obligation is to teach the children. So don't lose focus on what's the most important part of the Seder, which is the children. Obviously, fulfilling the mitzvahs. And there's a lot of mitzvahs on the night of the Seder. Famously, I think the Vilna Gaon, have a list, if I'm not mistaken, even 63 mitzvahs. Some high number. I have it in the Haggadah. I have a piece of paper that specifies and goes through every single mitzvah. There's a tremendous amount of mitzvahs. But one of the most important is teaching your children and making sure that they're up and awake, and that's why it's the responsibility is on the parents to make sure that they nap. If you know that they're not going to nap, go on a long car ride because they fall asleep in the car when they're tired. Bring them out, Erev Pesach, bring them, wear them out, and then nap them in the car. Whatever you got to do so that they'll stay up longer for the Seder and they'll appreciate the holiness. Forget about that their sleep schedules are going to be off after. Forget about it. The Seder is of the utmost importance. They'll figure it out. Eventually, they'll go back to normal. It's twice a year in Israel, only once a year for people living there full time, of course. And the halachas of someone visiting, that's another discussion of itself. Not so simple to just keep one day. But anyways, that's the idea over here. You want to accustom them with mitzvahs. That's why they should lead it. This specifically when it comes to ana, because you're not fulfilling someone's obligation. But you shouldn't allow them to do the hodu because they're not obligated in mitzvahs, and you can't and they can't motzi you fulfill the obligation by saying yomer na and then returning and then saying the hodu again. That's not correct. So in other words, they should only do it for the ana over there. Okay, so basically, this is this simon without the Piskei Teshuvos. Any questions, comments, or anything about this simon, what we did so far?
Tangential question.
Yes.
When we mentioned at the beginning about the Hirutzen by benching, we
Yes.
mentioned that only the guy doing the Zeman says that?
Yes, so I alluded to the fact that a lot of people I've noticed that the custom is that only the person leading the Zeman says it. I am questioning that and saying that who said that you need to lead the Zeman in order to say that bracha. So right, correct. So we have to figure out is there a halachic basis for only the person leading the Zeman doing it.
But it's not
I would think maybe the only reason is if you have 5 guests and every single guest is going to now do a free fall, and it's going to disturb everyone else's benching, and how are you going to answer so many amens in everyone's bench? So it could mess things up, especially if you have 10 guests. That's the only thing that I would think of.
Okay, but there's nothing wrong with the person saying.
And that's what I just said.
Yeah.
That's maybe why people wouldn't do it. Yeah. Dov, are we good?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So
what was the last question that Rav Sean asked? What was this?
About the Zimun.
Yeah.
The Hirutzen.
About the Hirutzen for the Zimun. Is it only that the person leading the benching says that, or could anyone say that?
I think anyone, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not so simple.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, have a good day.
Tomorrow
Tomorrow we'll be here. Tomorrow we'll be here.
we'll work. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be here. All right, David, have a good day.
Have a good day.